how's it going? It's patch day. We got a patch coming out for Battlegrounds and Constructed as well. However, we did some speculations for what Battlegrounds patch looks like. So as you'll see very shortly, I'm not at home right now. I'm on the road. So I'm going to be in two different places at once. We're going to be watching the speculations from stream, and also I'm going to review them with you in my car. Let's go. Hey y'all, so as I mentioned, we're in my car driving from right now. We're going from Atlanta to Nashville for the day and heading to Chicago to visit my family. So definitely wanted to talk about these patches that are coming out right now. Big changes for Battlegrounds. We did some speculation on stream, so we're going to be referring back to that like we did in the last video. But instead, I am now in my car. So we're going to talk about the patch and what it means for the game now. All right, so these are our speculations that we saw on our teaser. Excuse me. Let me start over. We got this teaser on social media, on Twitter and Instagram from Hearthstone, saying things are changing for the next patch. So let's talk about what all of these could possibly mean. Let's start with Curator. So Curator, I will say I had like a little bit of squishy brain here and thought that Curator was a 1/1. I don't know why I thought that, but let's see what I said about it. Let's start with our buffs. We have Curator. So Curator getting a buff is really interesting. I wonder if the Amalgam is just going to start as a 2/2. So I was completely wrong. It is changing drastically. I know it doesn't feel like a big drastic change, but it really is. It's going from a 2/2 to a 1/1 with Venomous. This now means that in every single game, there is Venomous available. And we are seeing a nice change for Curator to win in those early matchups, as well as having that all minion type. So we still get the menagerie buffs that we were originally getting with Curator. I think this is a fantastic change for the hero power for the Curator, little Amalgam. And very often we see, you know, not really, sometimes you even sell it. I sold it the other day and I was really sad about it. I won't sell it now for sure. I really like this change. Moving on to Eternal Night. What did I say about this? Moving on to the first minion, we have Eternal Knight. So this gets +1/+1 for all the other Eternal Knights that have died this game. I think, again, this is just going to be a stat buff, but it's kind of weird for that to be a stat buff because they consistently buff themselves. Yeah, it's a 3/1. So maybe it starts as a 4/2, maybe. I actually think that's a surprising buff for me. Maybe it starts as a 4/2. I think that's my guess. So I wasn't too far off. I did say it was going to start with that little stat gain. It was going to start at a 4/2, right, is what I said. But it's starting at a 4/1. So it still has that 1 health, more likely to die in that very first matchup. And then we see the additional stat increase. We already see a very hefty attack buff for Undead, especially in the early game. Not so much health. Really, we see health from like Sister Death Whisper later in the game. But we love the ability for this minion to die, as well as, you know, do a little bit more damage. Continuing on with the Undead, what did I say about Scarlet Skull? Scarlet Skull. Scarlet Skull gives a friendly Undead +1/+2, which is its stats +1/+2. I think this is going to give an additional health stat. I think this is going to be +1/+3 instead of +1/+2. Undead obviously doing really well with attack gains throughout the game between the two Nerubian Deathstormer and then Anubarak. So I think that this is just a little health help, I think. +1/+3 feels reasonable. +2/+3 for a tier 2. I could see it going up a tier and being +2/+3, but that sounds pretty bad to me, so that's my guess. So as much as I like my proposed change, I am not a game dev, and I think that this is a really good change as well. Very often, we see Scarlet Skull not dying before the minion you want it to die, but changing the stats from a 1/2 to a 2/1 means that that 1 health more likely to die for sure. I used to like to taunt my Scarlet Skull. You know, I probably won't even taunt it anymore. Not really. It'll die on impact for sure. You lead with it, you get the value. Moving on, we have Flourishing Frostling. This one's actually, when you see my speculation, you'll see why I'm laughing. This one was really funny. And you know what? I'm not going to ruin it. Go watch it. I keep forgetting the name of this minion. Flourishing Frostling. It got a buff last time around as well, but it's getting another buff. Right now it's a 0/5, has +1 attack for each elemental you played this game. It went from a 0/4 to 0/5. I don't think it's going to be so linear of like being a 0/6, but it might be, honestly, because the attack does stack. Maybe it no, you know what? My guess is it starts at 1/5. I think it's going to start at 1 health. And then like when you play it, it turns into a 2/5. I think that's reasonable. Because playing it on tier 2 and you haven't played any elementals yet, being a 1/5, I feel feels really bad. So that feels correct. So the change that's actually happening for this minion, I said it was going to be too linear because it already went from a 0/4 to a 0/5. And I was like, there's no way it's going to be a 0/6. It is in fact going to 0/6. It is not starting with that one attack, which is fine. It's okay. You know, I hope that this is enough for this minion. Next, we have Hummingbird. I will preemptively say I did pretty good on this one. Let's go see. Our burb. This is our Hummingbird. Your other beasts have +2 attack. It's a 0/3 right now. So giving it attack is a nerf. So maybe it's a 0/4 now. Getting a little bit more health to stay alive a little bit longer, 0/4. And then also the 1-cost beast, the 4/1 could trade into it. I think it's a 0/4. So I was right. You know, it is getting that little increase, but a better one than I imagined. It is a 0/5 instead of a 0/4 even. That's really, really nice. Probably going to take multiple hits from opponents before it dies, especially in those early turns. I really, really like this for the Hummingbird. Makes it much more valuable. And we continue to see some undead buffs with our Handless Forsaken. I am very proud of this one. I'm proud of what I thought was going to happen and what actually happened. Let's see what I thought. Our Handless Forsaken. Oh, heck. I thought it's a 2/3 with summoning the 2/2 with Reborn. So it's a 2/3 that summons a 2/2 that summons a 2/1. I think that's a big buff, but maybe it goes down to tier 3. Xylobones is on tier 4. That's a really big buff for it to go down to tier 3. I just don't think a stat line gain is going to be that good. So I'm going to say it's going to go to tier 3, which is massive. And I don't think correct, but like a stat line buff seems incorrect. So for me, that's what my guess here. So I was right? It is in fact moving down to tier 3, but instead of being a 2/2 hand with Reborn, it is a 2/1 hand with Reborn, which I will absolutely take for that minion to be on tier 3. It's going to be a really, really valuable, useful unit. Next is the Accordotron. I had some thoughts on this. Let's check it out. We have our Accordotron on 3 getting a buff. At the start of your turn, gain 1 extra gold. I think it's just going to be a 3/3. I think it's going from a 2/3 to a 3/3. I'm honestly surprised it's getting a buff because of the economy that it provides. But I think it's a 3/3. Hey, welcome back, Alex. And I get a gold star because I was absolutely correct. It's going from a 2/3 to a 3/3, just a little bit more attack. I didn't actually feel like this needed any help. It's very, very valuable. I love Accordotron. I will buy every single one I can, but also I'm greedy and I love economy, so there's that. Next is Prickly Piper. You know, looking back and looking at like the druid archetype of this hero power druid and the comparison between, my prediction didn't make a lot of sense, but let's go look at it anyway. Okay, Quillbore. We have our Piper getting a buff. I'm kind of glad we're seeing a little bit of Quillbore support here. I think that so we have the Jazzer on 3, Piper on 4, which is a 6/3, and it's getting a buff. A stat line buff doesn't make sense. I think that both of the Quillbore or the gem buffs, like the Moonbacon Jazzer and the Prickly Piper, I think they're both going to be on 3. Again, really big buff, but also Quillbore do need a little bit of help. We do see those out of control Quillbore comps, but I feel like those are few and far between, and like it's not consistently good enough. But again, like that's both of those speculations, like the hand and then also the Prickly Piper, I feel like that's really a big buff. I don't think it's right, but I don't think stat line change is right for Prickly Piper either. So in reality, we're seeing a 6/3 go down to a 5/2. This is kind of nice because sometimes that Prickly Piper doesn't die, and of course you do need that Death Rattle effect to trigger in order to get those Blood Gem attack buffs. So useful, valuable for sure. Definitely nice that it still does a decent amount of attack. I would have liked to at least see the attack stay up there where the health could lower a little bit, but I'll take it. It'll die. I'll take it. Next, we have our Xylobones. Love these undead buffs. Let's see what I said. We have our Xylobones. This is on tier 4, and it starts as a 5/1. I think it's going to start as a 6/1. Just a slight attack increase. And that is, in fact, 2 gold stars for me. I said 5-1 to 6-1, and I was absolutely correct. It's getting that little attack buff, which I used to play like a green thumb right next to it. Maybe now I won't. Maybe now it's, attack enough, at least for the mid game. Next, we have our Bristleback Knight. This is another Quillbore buff. This is our Divine Shield with the frenzy of getting the Divine Shield back, the Wind Fury. Let's see what happened.
Our Bristleback is on tier 5. Our Bristleback Knight is a 5-8. It's going to go to a 6-10, and it's still going to be on 5.
I'm going to give myself like half a gold star for this one because I was pretty close. It went from a 5-8 to a 6-9. So instead of just having those, it would, 6-10 would be better, but I'll take what I can get. Now we have our Utility Drone. Utility Drone, I wish my prediction was right. Let's go look.
Utility Drone. Some of these I'm kind of surprised are getting a buff. Utility Drone is a 4/5, which is an end of turn effect of giving your minions +1/+1 for each magnetization they have. I guess in my head I have these very polar things of like very, very good Quillbore builds and very, very good Utility Drone builds because I don't know, I've made some pretty insane things happen with Drakari and Utility Drone. I think that this is not going to be a change to Utility Drone itself. I think that it's going to give +1/+2 for magnetizations. I think that it's not actually going to change any stat line itself, which is a weird speculation, but I think that's what's missing from it because in order for the effect to be really good, it's like the trade-off. You have a 2/2 Light Fang, which now is kind of LOL, Light Fang's later on, but it provides stats. So I think it's the end of turn effect.
Our Utility Drone, instead of that little increase in what it gives, it's going from 4/5 to 6/7. The stat line is nice. Usually you magnetic things to Utility Drone anyway. Great with Drakari. I wasn't really expecting to see it on the list, so extra stats is always a nice thing, especially when you triple into it and you're like, this is not really part of my comp yet, but you can absolutely build around it. And a bigger stat line I'm more likely to take to build around than a smaller one because it feels more, it's a nice buffer of okay, I at least have these additional stats and I'm not going to take damage in hopes of finding a comp around this. So I think that this is a really good change. Moving on to Bongo Bopper. I am reverse psychic here where I manifested the thing that I said not. Let's go see.
Okay, so for Quillbore, we have our Bongo Bopper getting a buff, which is an end of turn effect. Gain or get a blood gem and play 2 more on this. So at this point, when you play a Bongo Bopper, it's either because you literally can't find anything else, or you've already started buffing your blood gems, or it'll either fit in your comp or it won't. But I guess that's any minion. In terms of a buff,
I specifically said this wasn't going to get a functional change, didn't I? But it did. In fact, I did not just get a stat line increase. It did. I mean, it's a 6/5 now, but it is get 2 blood gems and play 2 on it. So it's not just getting 1 anymore. That I already thought Bongo Bopper was a very valuable unit, and this makes it so much more valuable. All right, Gusty Trumpeter. I so badly wanted my prediction to be right. Let's go see.
Our Gusty. We're seeing a change to Gusty, but not Rock. I mean, Rock got a pretty decently sized buff, but I'm happy about the Gusty change. I said from the beginning of this, right, that Gusty and Rock both needed to go a tier down. Gusty Trumpeter went from 5 or 6 elementals to selling 5 elementals. You get another random elemental. I still don't think that's good enough. There are definitely those outlandish conditions where you find enough, you pop off, you use a duo, you get a golden Gusty. There's a lot of different things there, but I'm gonna sit here and pretend that it's going to 4. I know I'm wrong, but if I put it out there in the universe, maybe I'll be right. But I think I'm wrong. But it would be lovely to be on 4. That's what Elemental needs. It needs the ability to find elementals. And honestly, even if you're playing a Nomi situation, you triple into a Nomi, you're on 4, you're playing Gusty, it's not great because you're getting base statted units. So say you have 2 nice cyclones that have been buffed by Nomi in your shop, and then Gusty randomly gives you a cyclone. You're gonna triple with a base statted unit instead of having those nice stats from the shop. So I don't think it's even that good, but I think that 4 is where it should be. I don't know. I'm going to manifest that it goes to 4.
Gusty Trumpeter, yet again, remains on tier 5. But we are getting that stat line increase similar to Utility Drone, going from 4.5 to 6.7. But is it enough? Is it enough? I really want to play Elementals. I don't know if this is enough or not. We'll see. I will say it definitely feels like less of a board liability being a 6.7 instead of a 4.5. But, you know, on to our Light Fang. You know, I'm not even going to tell you. Let's go look.
All right, for Light Fang, this is our 2/2. At the end of your turn, give a friendly minion of each type +2/+2. So we're seeing some help to Menagerie. I think the actual Light Fang itself is going to get buffed here, because having a 2/2 at this point, like, assuming you're playing a Menagerie, I feel like the value from Light Fang also comes from pairing with Drakari. And in that situation, like, you're already sacrificing a 1/5. One of your 7 units is a 1/5, and then also having a unit that's a 2/2, I think that's just not great. So maybe moving Light Fang to like a 4/4, maybe.
And this is my third gold star where I, in fact, guessed the correct thing. We are seeing that stat line increase. It does make it less of a liability on the board, potentially a little bit of help for a Menagerie comp, which we're not seeing a lot of right now. A lot of board buff, a lot of valuable board buff between Boogie Monster. You know, we have our overall board scaling, not so much Menagerie. I mean, we still have Agam, we have Light Fang. Hopefully this makes Light Fang a little more viable. Next, we have our Young Murkai. Let's go take a look.
All right, Young Murkai is getting a buff. This has to be a stat line buff because Young Murkai is already so good. Or maybe that's my opinion because I'm a Rylak Elemental gamer. It's okay. So this is a 7/4. At the end of your turn, the minion to the left of this triggers its battle cry. The golden version is similar to the duo where minions on either side of it trigger their battle cry. I don't see it happening where it, because when it first came out, it was both minions. And then the golden version was both minions twice. I don't see that revert. That's too strong, especially in certain very Battlecry-centric situations like dragons, doing the silly Rylak Elemental stuff. You know, it's too good. So, like, why would you even play Rylak at that point? So I think that maybe we're just seeing a stat line love here. Maybe 8.5, 8.6 instead of 7.4.
I mean, okay, my ideas were pretty close. I mean, I underdid it a little bit. This is similar to the Hummingbird situation. It's going to a 9.6 instead of a 7.4. That's a nice little buff. I love Young Murkai. I love comboing Young Murkai. Again, economy lover. Love making those, like, really silly situations happen. Love playing it with Bran and Primal Fin. And this will make it even more fun because it's less of a board liability. Let's go. Eternal Summoner. Preface that, again, following a very similar line that we've talked about just now, but let's go see.
Our Summoner. Summoner, when Summoner first came out, I think, okay, it wasn't Reborn when Summoner first came out. That's correct. It wasn't Reborn, and it summoned 2 knights, and now it's Reborn. How could it get buffed? 7/2. It's going to be a 7/2. Stat line buff. 7/2. That's my guess. Instead of 6/1, 7/2.
So again, I undersold on the stat line increase. I guess I should give buffs a little more love. I thought it was going to gain to 7/1, but it in fact is going to an 8/1. That's so much better to trade into. I love this. I love a summoner build, especially when you start those Eternal Knights early. It's so much fun. Probably one of my favorite undead situations, and this is very, very good. Speaking of undead, we have Sister Death Whisper. Let's see what I thought.
Sister Death Whisper. After a friendly minion's reborn, give your undead +1/+2 permanently. I think that, honestly, I think this is going to be a +2/+3. We don't see enough undead in the end game. Sister Death Whisper especially, like an undead board in the end game, not a lot. So I think that +2/+3 honestly wouldn't be the worst thing.
I pretty much missed the ball here, right? Okay, so it's going from a 4/9 to a 4/10, which is nice. But instead of a 2/3 buff, like I was hoping it's going to a 1/3, which, you know, we're still seeing that additional health. I will take that. Absolutely, yes, I will. Last but not least, for buffs, we have our Polarizing Beatboxer. This... last but not least, we have our polarizing beatboxer. Let's see what I said about this one.
Our polarizing beatboxer, this is a 3/7. Whenever you magnetize another minion, or it also magnetizes to this. So this is a stat line. 4/8 instead of 3/7. Not big change, but change, I think.
Again, an undersell for me. It's going to a 5/10. I thought it was a 4/8. I thought it was a mere 4/8. But I will totally triple into a beatboxer without any other mechs with a 5/10 because that is a great unit to scale. And I am, the beatboxer utility drone build is one of my favorite things. So big fan of this minion, big fan of the buff. Now we're moving on to our nerfs. So ETC was our first hero there. Let's check it out.
Starting with ETC here. So this one looks ETC buddy specific. I wonder. I haven't seen so many ETC's buddy situations. It's a 3 right now. It's a tier 3 buddy. I think it goes up to 4 or 5. I think that sometimes it just happens too early. And if you find it too early, I think that it can be pretty overpowering to, golden a buddy. So I think that it's going to go. I think it's going to go up to 4.
I am just consistent with these undersells. Well, tier 4 is still very good. So moving the buddy to tier 5 is fantastic. That's a very late time to get the buddy. Sometimes you see a really silly spike by getting the buddy very early. And the only way you can find the buddy is by pushing the button at tier 5 or after. So, and with that change where tier 5 still takes 11 gold to start, I think that this is a really, really good change and will change the entire situation for ETC. I would love to see a little bit of an armor increase here, maybe, but, maybe not necessary. ETC is a lot on the RNG of what buddies you find anyways, but I think that finding his buddy sometimes could lead to the most busted scenarios because you would just pop off so early and the rest of the lobby wouldn't have a chance. We knew demons were going to get a nerf. We knew it. So we have our Soul Rewinder getting a nerf. What did I think?
On to the minions for the nerfs. We have our Soul Rewinder getting a nerf. This is going to tier 3.
I'm actually really surprised that we're not seeing what I said going to tier 3. I feel like would be good, but we'll talk more about that later. Seeing that it's going from a 3/1 to a 2/1. So seeing that attack decrease, I think is nice. It doesn't trade well, like it does get a lot of health, especially if you play it in combination with a Wrathweaver, but it doesn't trade well and it's going to trade even worse now. So this may feel a little bit better. You have this crazy end game with demons and Soul Rewinder facilitates that. But we're seeing some other minion changes that will make this feel better that it's still on 2. Our Radio Star getting another nerf. I was sad about the first nerf. I was scared about the second nerf. Let's see what I thought.
Radio Star. They already nerfed it once. I think, honestly, from my overall impressions of the nerfs, I feel like they're just kind of trying to slow down. There's this steamroll that happens when people start to hit 3 because of tripling into duo, because of Radio Star providing minions. Like, I think they're just trying to slow it down a little bit there. So Radio Star going to 4 makes a lot of sense. Maybe going back up in stats, so maybe like 3/1 again, or maybe even like a 4/2 and being on tier 4 instead, I think it is the thing. Because it's essentially a free unit every turn because it dies. It's got 1 health, it dies. We have our Rylak. Rylak is finally getting changed. I think that maybe, I said this as well. This is my prediction.
So it is in fact still staying on tier 3, but is going from a 3/1 to a 2/1. So again, this is not going to trade very well. It's going to give you that minion, so you can still get it on tier 3, still find it with AFK, 3-on-3, find a Radio Star, really nice tempo of just getting another minion and increasing the amount of minions you have on your board, but it's not trading well anymore. It didn't at first, still didn't with the first nerf, and now it's even worse. So board liability for economy payoff, I will still take that any day. Next, we have the minion that we were anticipating a nerf for. It's Rylak. We know. Let's go look.
Rylak is going to be similar to Duo and Young Murkai, where it is the death rattle, but it only impacts one side, and not till it's golden does it impact both sides. I want to say it's going to go up to 4 as well, but like that's a pretty heavy nerf. Well, I mean, it could keep its same functionality and just go up to 4. That's a tough one. It is way overpowered at 3. Way overpowered at 3. So going up to 4 makes sense. Because aside from Rylak, there's 2 other minions that can proc death rattles that you already have. That's Young Murkeye that lives on 6. And that's the Disco Dragon that I always forget the name of that lives on 5. So it's a really early minion. So actually, you know what? I think it's going to go to 4. Both Radio Star and Rylak going to 4. That's my guess.
And unfortunately for me, another gold star because it's going to tier 4. I'm sad about it. Oh, I am such a sucker for the Rylak Elemental comp. It's a problem, but it's not because it's fun, but it's so much bait. And now going to tier 4, I mean, might make it a little better because you find it a little bit later. And, you know, I have been staying on tier 3 and rolling sometimes. So, you know, a little bit later in the game I don't think is a bad thing for Rylak. Speaking of our demon buffs that we were talking about before, speaking of our demon nerfs that we were talking about before, let's talk about Malchezaar. What did I think?
Malchezaar getting a nerf as well. Malchezaar is a 5/2 on 3. 2 refreshes each turn cost health instead of gold. Oh. I've been guessing every single minion so far. I've guessed up a tavern tier. I said Soul Rinder's going to 3, Radio Star's going to 4, Rylak's going to 4. Could Malchezaar go to 4? I think it's going to slow the game down. I think it's necessary, though. Like, there's so many demons right now on 3. I think it's going to go to 4. I hate guessing everything going up a tavern tier, but, like, it's kind of necessary. And we're seeing way more buffs than nerfs.
Another half a gold star for me. That was Malchezaar going to tier 4 was correct. So that combo of Wrathweaver with Soulwinder with Malchezaar, 1, 2, 3, was really busted. So Malchezaar going to 4 takes care of that situation. You can still triple into it on 3, which is fine. You know, it's just not the situation where you're on 2 tripling into Malchezaar and then you can stay on 2 cycle demons or, you know, just roll away forever. So this is a really good thing, I think. Also, it is getting that stat line increase of 5/2 to 6/3. So a little bit better there to have the Malchezaar on your board as well. Our dynamic duo, we saw a change to it, which I think was one of the best changes, honestly, in the last little patch. What happened now? Let's see what I thought was going to happen.
Duo getting another nerf. Duo initially got the nerf where it removed the battle. Well, it wasn't a nerf. I think it was in the functional change area, like the nerf buff area. So Duo getting a nerf this time, not a nerf buff. It wouldn't go to 5. That's way too late for Duo. I think it's just going to be even lower stats. Let's see what it is right now. Right now it's a 4/4. I think it's going to be a 2/2. I think it's going to be a really, really big sore spot on your board where you're like, this is a very small minion. I think it's going to be a 2/2.
I was thinking too small. It is in fact going to tier 5 now. So it's going to be on the same tier as Drukhari, which you could look at as a good or a bad thing. Stay on 4, triple into 5s, potentially find it. It's going to tier 5. It is gaining stats. It's going to a 6/6 because it is going up that tier, making it a little more valuable to have on your board, but still not so great. I think Duo, honestly, though, you see it, you take it more often than not. It's free minions. Like, you wait 2 turns, you get free triples. It's really just a very good minion, very meta-defining, and I think that it moving up is necessary. Last but not least for our nerfs, we have Tethys. This wasn't one I was expecting. Let's see what I thought.
Tethys getting a nerf. Tethys right now is a 5/6. I think it's gonna go to like a 3/4. I think it's too high of a stat line. Every 8 gold, it gives you free minions, and assuming you're already playing pirates, that's pretty often. So I think it's just a stat change there to a liability, a 3/4. I'm thinking about this now as I'm saying these nerf predictions. And I don't know if y'all watched my YouTube video last time around where we compared the reality. I just really nerf things into the ground, and I feel like I'm doing that again right now, but like I guess we'll find out.
So not quite right. It's maintaining its stats, but it's going from 8 gold to 9 gold. So less pirates you're getting, but like I don't know if that 1 gold is going to make that much of a difference. I feel like usually when you get Tethys, you really start snowballing. So I'm curious to see how much this is impacting. We have 4 more minions to talk about. These were the buff nerfs, or, the not necessarily fitting in a category. The first one being a hero. Let's see what I thought was going to happen to Arana.
Okay, let's talk about the very bottom of this teaser here. We have Arana getting a nerf buff, a buff nerf. I wouldn't expect this to be about armor. It is a green and red outline, so this is changes. This is nerf buff. We know Arana got bugged and went to 12 rolls. So the only way to nerf Arana, right, would be more rolls. It could suggest a whole new hero power. That's kind of what I'm struggling with right now. I'm sitting here thinking, how could you buff Arana? Because Arana already gets a fantastic situation of like these minions, like full shops and refreshing. Maybe the shops no longer refresh. Maybe it's really bad with Felbat now and like kind of defining, and like people force demons with her. So maybe you remove the ability for the minions to regenerate 7 minions at a time. Yeah, maybe 3 rolls instead, and now the minions don't regenerate. You just see 7 minions per shop. But there's a chance there's going to be a whole new hero power. But I'm going to say 3 rolls to activate and 7 minions in a shop with no regeneration.
So I was kind of right. I did say there was going to be a whole new hero power, which there is. So now the hero power is after 16 friendly minions attack. The first minion you buy every turn is free. We love the economy, especially when you get later in the game. That's fantastic. But, that's... I like it. I'm definitely going to try it out for sure. I really liked Arana's hero power before. So now you don't see full shops. Shop doesn't refresh and replace like it did. That means that broken Felbat situation is gone, which, I'm sad about. But I think that this will still be pretty good. You can buy expensive minions for not so much. And 16 friendly minions, that doesn't take too long into the game. So should be pretty doable and no more rolling down, and I'm really going to miss that demon combination. We also saw a buff nerf to Scrap Scraper. Let's see what I thought.
Our Scrap Scraper is getting a nerf buff. So we saw a dragon get a nerf buff like this, and it was because it changed Tavern tier, but also stat line. So I'm thinking maybe Scrap Scraper goes to 5 and turns into like a 5/8. But I also think that's wrong. I lied to you. I think the Avenge is going to go up. I think the Avenge is too low for what mech already can accomplish. I think ideally you're going to want to get 2 magnetic a turn, and now you can get up to 4 or 5. So I think that maybe it's going to go to Avenge 5. I think that's the nerf. Avenge 5, and it's a 3/7. That's my guess.
So like a quarter of a gold star for me. I was correct that it is going to a 3/7. However, it is now an end of turn where you get a random magnetic at the end of your turn. So it does have that combo with Drakari, which makes it that much more useful with Utility Drone. Polarizing Beatboxer overall fits with the end of turn mech situation. I think it's a lot better. It's going to be a lot less abused of like just farming, replicating menaces. Like, I think that this is a really good change, and it's also maybe a little bit less broken. Last but not least, for this whole patch, we are seeing something leaving and something returning, and I was correct on these. Let's see.
And then we have our that's coming back. That's an old minion, right? Rodhide Knoll returning to Battlegrounds. I mean, it makes sense. Undead on 1 is just Mummy and Mummy, Risen Rider, Incorporeal Corporal. Going to like a 6. Well, this is a minion that already exists, right? So they couldn't change it, could they? Maybe a 6/6 going to tier 2, and then Rodhide Knoll returning on tier 1 as a 1/4. Interesting. That's my guess. Rodhide Knoll coming back, same stats, just coming back, and then Incorporeal Corporal. No, that would be a nerf. That would be a nerf, right? If it was going to 2 and it changed stats, like 2 but better, it would be a nerf buff. So maybe it's just saying one's coming, one's leaving? Yeah, that makes sense. Rodhide Knoll coming back, Incorporeal Corporal leaving. which is a bummer because I literally just learned how to say it correctly. Finally, I now can say it without thinking about it, which I'm very happy about. But, you know, it's leaving. So, well, I don't want to say that it's leaving. I think it's leaving.
We're getting our Rothide Knoll back, and Incorporeal Corporal is gone. I'm sad. I finally can say it without thinking too hard about it. But Rothide Knoll is coming back. That's a really interesting thing to come back. I am curious to see how it fits in with the meta. I mean, I like that it does gain those stats of whenever a minion dies. It's basically like a reverse Xylobones on tier 1 that's not a Xylobones at all. It's a nice attack eventually sometimes. Definitely curious to see how it fits. All right, so that was our patch note review / speculation video from stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me from the car, from the road. I appreciate all of you so much. Remember to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the changes, what you think is going to happen in the meta, and how incremental some of these changes are. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.